Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, guys. I'm so glad that you're here today. So today we're going to be talking with Kim Merrill, and she is a mom to a woman with Down syndrome, and she's going to tell us about her experience. I am so excited to introduce you. With that, let's get to Kim.
Thank you, Bryce.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
we are
Yeah.
so glad that you're here. So let's talk about your amazing daughter that has Down syndrome. Tell us about your story.
Yeah. So I was 26 years old, and Kirby, I'm a mother of 4. Me and my husband have 4 kids, and Kirby is the oldest, and she was born when I was 26 years old. And I did not know that she had Down syndrome before she was born, and we didn't know she was a girl. So we were elated when the doctor held her up and said, "You have a baby girl." And I really wanted a girl right off the bat, so I was thrilled. And she was not breathing well. So he says, she's not breathing too well. So I'm going to give her to the nurse who took her off to get oxygen. And so he kind of dealt with me a little bit in terms of the post delivery. And then he went to go check on Kirby, and he came back in. I'm still on the delivery table. And he said, I asked him, I said, "Well, how's she breathing?" And he said, "Well, that's the least of my worries." And my thought was, what is more important than breathing? And then he said, "Kim and Rob, I suspect that your daughter has Down syndrome." And my world that was spinning stopped, and I just heard my little brain working as hard as it could. Down syndrome, down. I was trying to find a file up there to recollect I knew what it was. I just didn't know that much about it. So that was in 1985. And, our doctor was so great, and he explained a little bit. I had a few questions like, how long does she live? Because when I was younger, I had read a book called Angel Unaware, and it was by Dale Evans and Roy Rogers, which you would know, those were actors back in the 50s, but they had a daughter with Down syndrome. And that little girl died pretty young as a toddler, because Down syndrome sometimes can be born with a heart defect, a hole in their heart. And as they get bigger, then the hole gets bigger. And back then they didn't do surgery for it, but now they do, and they repair the heart, and the child can live long. So that was really my only question I could come up with. So then he left, and Rob and I were just really quiet, and just it was just settling in on us. And then we thought the Lord chose us to be her parents. He could have given us anybody, and he gave us Kirby. And in a way, it was very humbling. We thought, and we wanted to embrace it. All of our other friends were having very normal, healthy children, and for whatever reason, the Lord gave us Kirby, and for that, it changed our thinking of, what, we're going to adore her, love her, and embrace it. And she's a gift. And for whatever reason, we know there's something very special intended for Rob and I in the fact that we now have a baby with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, what a beautiful story to not know and then to be able to embrace it. Because I know parents are scared. I think this diagnosis can be really, really scary for families, and they don't know how it will look. And so that fear gets in the way. So what words of advice or thoughts do you have? What do you want parents to know? And then also, how has it changed your life or your family's life by having a daughter with Down syndrome?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it is so normal you fear the unknown. So, and we were first time parents. We didn't know what we were doing to begin with. And then all of a sudden, so it is scary. And, you don't want to screw up, and you don't know what you're doing. So I would say to parents, we live in a day and an age where there's so much information, and there's so much help, that there's all kinds of programs, and early intervention. No matter what the disability, early intervention is so crucial, in my opinion, and it's available. It's wonderful. There's the Leanne Britton Center, which is associated. We used to be Shawnee Mission Hospital, but it was Advent Health, and we took Kirby there as a newborn. And back then it was called the Infant Development Center, but it was speech and PT and OT, and plus they just taught me on things I could do at home with Kirby. That Down syndrome kids tend to have a low muscle tone, and so that's why they're delayed a lot in their physical development, crawling, rolling over. I just worked a lot with her at home, which I loved. And I learned so much about a child development, which I had no clue. So I would just encourage parents to seek help. And also, it was really beneficial that there were other parents that had special needs kids. So that really became a strong community of support for me. We get together. There was a mom support group, and we became really fast friends. And they all had different types of their children had different types of disabilities, but we all got to know each other through at the Leanne Britton, which used to be the Infant Development Center. And then I think the thing that Kirby was the oldest. I have 4 kids, like I said earlier, and I think her impact. There's no doubt that. Well, I'll go back. I had a friend of a friend that wrote me a letter. I didn't know her, but she was a friend of a friend who also had a Down syndrome child, and they lived in Oklahoma. And she said she encouraged me that as soon as you feel up to it, have more kids, because those siblings will impact your daughter's life in terms of development and just socially, and they'll be a great help to her. So we did. And the more I, think about it, we were doing that so that they would help Kirby. But really looking back, Kirby probably had more of an impact on her siblings. She's got 2 brothers and a sister, and, they're adults now. But just watching how living in a home where you have somebody that is different than you, and it forms and molds you. It molds your character, your personality. I swear my children are just empathetic. Um, the way they loved her, and it was hard for them because they Kirby got to go to public school, and because they're so close in age, they were all at the same school. And it was I'm sure there were embarrassing times, but when my son was a freshman at high school and Kirby was a sophomore, and it was lunchtime, it was his first day there, and Kirby was sitting at a table by herself, and he chose to go sit with her and have lunch. And I just thought, that's that you can't put a price tag on that in terms of raising your kids and wanting them to be really neat human beings that love and care, instead of going to sit with his buddies at the tan and popular table. He was taking he chose to sit with her, and he did that for a long time. So in terms of changing us, our society puts so much emphasis on physical appearance, beauty, intelligence, athleticism, money, just popularity. And that's the greatest thing about Kirby Merrill. She doesn't give a rip about any of that stuff. And it slaps me and Rob, my husband, in the face when we it just gets us back to what's right and what's real and what's the best. And it's not all this other things that our culture tends to tout as most important, because it's not. It's character. It's who you are. It has nothing to do with outward appearance or those other things I mentioned. So, in answer to your question, she has changed us tremendously. I would never ever want to do anything different. I would never change it. I would ask to do it all over again in terms of having a special needs child, because I feel like, and she's helped me. I mean, I'm impatient. I'm a way more patient person. I can find humor in things. I mean, we laugh a lot because we have to, because life isn't perfect. And we anyway, yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
rambling
an
on.
amazing story. No, it's great, because I think about the people that have been in my life that have Down syndrome, and they're some of the happiest people I've ever met.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just there is a simpleness about the way that they live life, and it's good for us to recognize, like, this really isn't such a big deal. It feels like a really big deal right now, but like the things that matter these
Mhm.
things, not those things, and to have that reality and just to see their smiles and how happy they are about the smallest things sometimes is lovely, right?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we forget about those like everyday joys. Like it's really
Mhm.
about those little moments that are the things that really create life and matter. So I love that Kirby's able to do that. So what thoughts do you have for parents without like that are families that don't have a kid with Down syndrome? Like, what do you want them to know? And then also like how as a community do we advocate for our kids that do have Down syndrome? So maybe
Mhm.
not in the parent perspective, but like offering advice to other parents that don't have this
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm. So I think your first question was, how do we add for parents who don't have kids with Down syndrome?
Yeah, what do
How
you want them to know? Or
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
how like what
Well,
do
I
you
think you lead by example as a parent. I mean, your kids are watching you do everything, and I think just in the way you respond to the people with Down syndrome or people with any kind of disability when you're out in public, or volunteering, or I grew up next door to a mentally handicapped young man who was about my age, and just watching my own parents love him. My mom threw him a surprise birthday party. My dad would take him on bike rides. I mean, I think as a parent, the example you set by treating other people, that right there is the best lesson you can give. And I know, you and I, Bryce, in an earlier conversation, you were talking about how you try and teach your kids when you're out in public. You talk to them, you reach
Mhm,
out to them,
mhm.
you smile at them, you hold the door for them, you talk. Lots of times it's so interesting to see people respond to Kirby. Some people look right through her, some people won't look at her, some people don't talk to her. But I love, we have recently moved to this neighborhood, and it's so neat to see people want to know her name, and they'll say hi to her, call her by name, which means a lot to me. And yeah, people that love her, that pursue
Mhm.
her, it just is such a gift to a mom's heart. So that's what I would tell people who don't have a special needs or a handicapped child,
Yeah, I mean,
is
and
see
to
them. Yeah.
yeah, yes, to have them be seen. I think that's
Mm.
the part. I mean, just humans in general, sometimes we forget about the other people, just
Yeah.
people that are not part of our lives and
Hmm.
whether they have a difference or not. But I
Hmm.
think especially my kids, like when we go to the park and we see a kid that has a wheelchair or has, like you can tell that there's some different ability that they have.
Yeah.
I encourage my kids to go up, say, ask them if they want to play, or they have braces on their
Hmm.
legs, and you can say, like, are you okay? Like, are you hurt? Or, like what, like have the other kid be able to explain what's going on because a lot of times they don't get that opportunity
Right.
to just express
Right.
themselves. And then my kids are learning and
Right.
they're curious and
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
compassionate. And I think
Hmm.
that is a gift to them to just teach them how
Hmm.
to have those conversations
Hmm.
because it is uncomfortable sometimes. You don't
Yeah.
maybe know what to say, but you
Yeah.
can always be friendly and say, hi, how are you? Tell your
Hmm.
name, right? Like I always tell my kids to start with their name, like, hi, I'm Bryce. What's your
Hmm.
name? Right? To figure out who they are, to give them that
Hmm.
name first. And then you can ask questions and say, can I ask you about your braces? Right? Would that be okay? And for them to say yes or no, to give them that ability to consent to that. And then also, to ask more questions. But most of the time, like once we get to that, they're like, the kid says, oh, I have these braces, it's helping me to walk. And my kids are like, okay, cool. You want to go play? And then it's over,
Yeah.
right? Like for them,
Exactly.
they're just kids
Hmm.
are simple too.
Hmm.
And then once it's like not a big deal, like they can play
Hmm.
too, then it's let's
Hmm.
move on. Let's keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So I think that is an encouraging part too, to just like allow our kids to be curious. And I think some
Hmm.
families will say, don't look at them, don't
Right.
say
Right.
anything, right? And I think I would advise against that. I advise to do the part where we're just curious and getting to know them and allowing them to
Mhm.
be a human. So I think that that's great.
Yeah.
We're aligned in that. So how do we advocate for these kids? So not being a parent with a kid with Down syndrome, I'm
Mhm.
not. Like, how do
Mhm.
we advocate in our society or in our schools to have more services or make sure that these
Mhm.
kids are having needs met or able
Mhm.
to get a job when they get older? Like, what
Mhm.
kind of things
Mhm.
can we do?
Yeah. Volunteer is one great. Special Olympics is a wonderful. It's been a great avenue for Kirby, and you can volunteer there. They do the Downs. They do a Down syndrome walk. I would also say, in high school they have peer tutor, peer models, so your kids could get involved that way in high school, be in that special ed class as a peer, which my Kirby always loved having a friend, that helped her, with her
Mhm.
locker or get to class or anyway. Um, and as an adult, I think, it's funny because Kirby has two jobs. She works at Lifetime Fitness, which she went through the Blue Valley school system, and they have a wonderful program called the Access House. Once the kids graduate from high school, then they go to this program for 3 years, and they infiltrate them throughout the community, by teaching them jobs. She's worked at Target and Applebee's and AMC, and they don't pay them, but they're giving them on the job training. And they have a coach with them, a job coach, the entire time. It's been wonderful. And through that program, she got her job at Lifetime Fitness, which she's been there 17 years. She's gone through, I think, 6 bosses, and she's the only one that's been there from the time it opened
That's
till now.
amazing.
But
That's amazing. Yeah.
they are hardworking. They do not call in sick. They show up on time. I mean, she's probably one of their best employees, and she can stay focused on her job and does it. And she doesn't complain, and she doesn't call. She doesn't take long vacations. I mean, she's done a. So she works there and also at Chick-fil-A, which she got that job because it was a friend of ours that owned Chick-fil-A and said, we'll find something for her to do. Yeah, bring her in. So both those jobs are very part-time, but I'm so grateful because she's now 38. She's a young adult. She's able to get up, and she looks forward to going to work every day, to the point that I say, hey, Kirby, we're going on vacation. We're going to Colorado. Oh, I can't miss work. Well, yeah, you can't miss work, honey. You've been here every day. You can take a
Yes.
week off.
Yes.
I mean,
It's giving
she's
her a
so
purpose.
devoted, but
Yes. Yeah.
routine is real important to Down syndrome kids. They like routine. It's safety, it's secure. I mean, I don't have to. She sets her own alarm. She gets up. She has a uniform. She puts them on. She does her hair. She brushes her teeth. She comes out for breakfast. I mean, she is very, very independent. She's not driven, not like she's competitive, but she's very reliable. I mean, she's responsible.
Mhm.
So, back to your question, as an adult, look for ways that you could hire someone like her, because they're a very reliable employee,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
love
hard
that.
for them to find jobs. That's kind of what I found with my peers, who have parents who have kids, adults of handicap. They want their kid wants to work, but it's kind of limited in what they can do. But there are jobs out there, and so it just would, even just simple things they can do. So hire them.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, because also like just the ways that we benefit from being around them is so
Oh
great,
yeah.
even if
Uh,
it's increasing employee morale and
right.
just like
Right.
their humor and kindness
Right.
and just like all those things of like those parts are a gift to the other people too. It's not just their family that benefits from that amazing
Right.
side. So what do you think we can do to make sure that kids and adults with Down syndrome are not forgotten besides hiring them?
Pursue them in relationships, be their friend. I think that's the biggest, hardest thing as Kirby as an adult now. When she was younger, we had, family friends. We did everything as with friends. We just, kids were over to play. It was just so school activities. But as an adult, Kirby's world has gotten a lot smaller because all of those family friends, those have all grown up or are married and moved away or have kids of their own, and life goes on. And Kirby lives with us, and we've wrestled with, having her live independently, and we just have never really. We're still wrestling with it. Although I think we've come to the fact that she is going to live with us the rest of her life, which is
Mhm.
great until we all go to the nursing home. But in answer to your question, I would say it's relationships. Befriend them,
Mhm.
and and I think that's probably the most important thing as an adult with a disability, is that and you have to work like to be Kirby's friend. It isn't like she picks up the phone to call you. She doesn't
Mhm.
initiate.
Mhm.
Um, so if you, and that's why I'm so grateful for her siblings, because they do pursue her. And then we have these precious in-laws, my daughter-in-laws, my son-in-law, who love her, who also, pursue her. But I know Kirby misses, she had some really sweet friends. Actually, one of her really good friends, a family friend, who's now married and has 3 kids, 2 biological, but she went and adopted a baby with Down syndrome because she
Mm.
was so touched by Kirby as her friend as a young, and she just loved the influence. She saw up close and personal our family and how we, you know, how we lived. And she adopted a baby with Down syndrome.
That's amazing.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you feel like you have learned in this process?
Oh gosh. I am who I am today because of Kirby Merrill. Um, I've learned a lot of patience, and I've learned that you got to let go of what other people think. Um, it could, yeah. It was just hard when she was younger because it's hard. I don't want to paint this perfect picture. Your heart breaks a lot because you want her to succeed and think her life is a little bit harder. Um, but I would say I've grown in being more compassionate and understanding, and um, probably giving up of myself and what I thought my life was going to be like, which is it's way better than what I thought in terms of just character and um, things that are really important. Uh, so I would say grace, patience, empathy, compassion, and a humbleness. It's humbling, and it's hard, but it's all been really good, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so what do you want parents of kids with Down syndrome to remember about our conversation? Because, like you were just saying, it is hard, and especially when you have young kids and you're in the thick of it, whether your kids are have a special difference or they would be considered more neurotypical. Like it is hard. Parenting is hard. It is so hard. But I think there are pieces that we want to give parents to encourage them. What would you want to say?
Well, I would say it, you have to change your paradigm, because what you thought, you're going to have this perfect little child that is going to, be a straight A student and get a scholarship, a tennis scholarship, you give all that up. But on the flip side, these kids with Down syndrome are a gift. They're incredible human beings, and our world needs them.
Mhm.
And I would not encourage anyone to abort, because she's one of the greatest gifts. Like, I think I've already communicated that to our family and to our extended family and to neighbors and to friends. And uh, the role she has played in our life, I don't know if I can put it into words. Um, so I would say enjoy it, even though your heart breaks, even though it's hard, but there's so much wealth in it in terms of just love and tenderness and uh, joy, and yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, but you can do it. Right. And
Oh
I think it's
gosh, yeah,
encouraging
yeah.
for,
Well, part of this, lots of times, Robert, we're like, we don't even have a handicapped child because
Mhm.
she's so. I mean, she doesn't require much from us. I mean, she does. She's totally independent. She takes care of herself,
Yeah.
and she does everything with us. I mean, yeah, she
Yeah.
rides. She's very capable.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there are differences, right? Like
totally, yeah, yeah. There
where Kirby
definitely,
doesn't
yeah,
drive a car, right?
right. But in terms
Yeah.
of, no, she doesn't drive a car, and that was kind of a, I think she's pretty capable she could probably read the little driver manual and commit to memory, but common sense, we'll be at a stoplight and she'll go, Mom, it's green. And yeah, but the car in front of me hadn't gone, honey. So I got to wait till that person in front moves before I can move. Just some common sense things. But she is, no, what I had a thought and I lost it. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I like her just being able to do things. It's different, but better.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
like she's able to keep up with your family, doing all the things that you guys love to do.
Right.
And
she hasn't really impacted. I mean, she has definitely impacted our life, but Rob and I can go out for a date night and she's fine. I'm comfortable with leaving at her home. She knows the rules. You don't answer the door. You don't,
Sure.
She's really good at listening and staying within boundaries, which, for her safety.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's been, yeah. I feel like our life has changed, but not to the point that we haven't been able to enjoy it.
Yeah. I think that's a fear that parents have when they think about having a kid with a difference that's going to be require a lot of intervention, right?
Yeah.
It's like that, you can't enjoy life or you won't be able to live any part of life or have time for you and your spouse or whatever. And I think, there are seasons where it is harder, right? Where there is a lot of time dedicated to certain things. But then, I mean, it's good for parents to know it gets easier, right? Like that, even with just like raising kids in general, right? Like when they're little, they require a lot of attention right now. Teenagers still require a lot of attention. It's a little different, but then, they grow up and they still need attention, but it's just different. Like you can give some space and trust and do things. So that's really encouraging for parents to hear. So thank you so much, Kim, for coming today and talking about your story. I so appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, I enjoyed sharing it. Thank you, Bryce. I wish you well.
I don't know about you, but I am so thankful for Kim coming on and talking about her story of raising Kirby and how it has so positively impacted their family. I just wanted this message to get out because I think it's so important that families understand that difficult can be wonderful. And I know that in the moment, sometimes that's really hard, but to embrace it and to grow through it. And with that, I will say thank you so much for coming today, for showing up, and to encourage yourself if you're somebody with Down syndrome, but also to be an encouragement to other families if they have a kid with Down syndrome. And I would love for you to subscribe and share this show and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and also keep the emails coming. We're loving all of the suggestions and thoughts. accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a fantastic day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.